So you guys have your calories in, thinking caps on, yeah? All right. Tusk Quill events, we need you to have your thinking caps on. So, but first I'm going to start with a little context setting just to give us like the broad overview, yeah? So we talk about life, okay? This wonderful thing called life. Life is full of ethical dilemmas and uncertain decisions. And we know very little about how the world actually works. So who here can agree with that statement? We're constantly dealing with dilemmas, making decisions under uncertainty about all kinds of aspects of our life. Relationship, work, just life direction, all kinds of stuff, right? And it's like relentless. From the minute you have that first fight with your friend in the playground during recess in 3rd grade, from then on until the end, it's almost like every few weeks there's like decisions that have to be made. Every few months there's things that we're pondering. It's always something occupying our mind. Is that right or wrong? Unless we're enlightened or something, right? If we're normal human beings, we're in that process of, we know very little about how the world works, but we have to keep making decisions under uncertainty. We have to keep confronting ethical dilemmas. What should I do? Hence, wise insight has always been precious for human beings. And you'll find stories of this throughout cultures. Who here is familiar with the story of Huiken and Bodhidharma? No? So Bodhidharma is this character, a Buddhist monk who traveled from India to China with the idea of spreading the teachings of the Buddha. But when he got there, he felt the people there in that society weren't really ready for what he had. So as legend has it, he went and sat in a cave and stared at the wall, meditated for 9 years. He's just kind of waiting for the society to sort of catch up to what he had to give. And at that time, there was somebody who was also kind of like a meditator who sort of heard about this meditating sage in the cave and trekked for miles to get his advice, because he was dealing with some existential crisis or something. And so he shows up to this Bodhidharma's cave and says, please, I want you to help me solve my existential dilemma. I don't know how to handle my own mind. Please help me. And as you can see in this picture, he doesn't even turn around. It's cold outside, snowing. This guy's trekked up a hill to be here. He's cold, he's freezing. And Bodhidharma doesn't even give him the courtesy of turning around. Then after some time, he's like, go away. You're not ready for this kind of thing. Don't treat this as a frivolous thing. You're treating it as a frivolous thing. So then Huiken, to prove his resolve of I'm super serious. I want to resolve my dilemma. I want the insight that you have. In the legend, he cuts off his left arm to prove how badly he wants the knowledge. And then, as you can see, Bodhidharma kind of turns around okay, maybe this guy's serious. Maybe he's not fucking around. So one example of how precious insight has been for human beings. Have any of you seen 300, the movie? When in the beginning, when Leonidas is thinking about, do I take my 300 men to go face the Persian army, he climbs up the wall to meet the oracle. You can see he has this satchel of offerings he has to make I think the oracle was being handled by some corrupt people or something, and he's climbing up this rock face, right? So Leonidas is the king. So just to put it in context, so we can think about it a little bit, who's the king? The king is the person who has access to all the resources of his civilization whenever he wants it, right? The king lives in abundance. The king is not supposed to experience lack. Whatever his civilization is able to produce, he should be able to access it easily. But even the king has to climb up a rock face by himself to get access to insight, because insight is something so precious, something so valuable. So even the person who technically could have anything he wants still has to work for this thing. Just as a way of showing, or maybe pushing forward this idea that cultures throughout history have always really valued the value of insight and wisdom. Now, obviously not everybody is motivated to do these kinds of risky adventures. These are always rare things. But we see it in our own lives, families, friends, mentors, the village elder. These are all resources that people have turned to throughout time to get some insight into the problems they're dealing with. One of the most profound bonding experiences between two human beings that you could experience, I would argue, is the sincere seeking of counsel. One person makes themselves vulnerable in front of another who receives this with grace and non-judgment, and then they share worldviews. I'm sure maybe you guys have experienced this sometimes in your life, right? It's you sincerely seek counsel from somebody. It's a really precious kind of moment. It's a bonding experience that you have with the other person. It builds stronger relationships, right? Do you guys agree? Disagree? Yeah, okay. And I would argue the internet has disintermediated this process. So deep insights on all kinds of life problems have been a Google search away for over 2 decades, training a whole generation of people into a whole new way of finding insight into life's problems, right? And social media algorithm-mediated insight and curiosity shapes hopes, aspirations, and ultimately decisions and behaviors. Can you guys relate to this? You see some reel changes your mind about something on Instagram, or you see a tweet and now you're thinking about something, right? Sometimes people make serious decisions. They change their hopes, their aspirations. They read a blog post and suddenly they're like, I'm going to quit my job. Has happened to me. I'm not even joking. And I followed through with it, you know. So it actually leads to things happening in the world, you know. Actually, that's kind of a little bit related. The anecdote here, this is me. These are things that happened to me a long time ago. There was, I read, this is, man, over like 10 years ago. I read some social media post, talked about this guy Emerson, and it was like a nice quote that I really liked. So then, have you guys seen the website The Marginalian? Do you guys know what that website is? Yes? Where she like, these like really nice short notes on literature and philosophy, yeah. So then that leads me to her website, like The Marginalian. I'm forgetting the name of the woman who runs it, but she had this post about Emerson, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and his essay Self-Reliance. It was something from his essay Self-Reliance. I really liked the little blurb there. So then I go to Amazon and it's like, oh, I can get the Kindle essay for 99 cents. Why not? I had nothing to do. I was like just out of college, first job. I was kind of hanging out. So I got so you can see the digital link, right? Social media leads me to website. Website leads me to Amazon. Amazon leads me to buy the book on Kindle. And I read it right there and I'm just blown away by this essay. I probably then read it like 3-4 times after that. It like really fascinated me in a certain way. It really struck something within me. And then I became really interested in Emerson, Thoreau, the transcendentalist philosophy, all these kinds of things. Around the similar time, I was on YouTube, and I don't know if you guys remember, like back in the day, YouTube had this feature of like other people are watching right at the top. Do you guys remember that? Who remembers that? A little while ago. It's like it would just put it right at the top. It would be 2 rows, like other people are watching this. So it's not really your algorithm per se. It's just like telling you. And in there was this one little video that just had an interesting thumbnail by a talk by this guy Alan Watts. All right, let me click on it. Let me read it. Let me watch it. And it just blew me away, that talk, that I just started going on an Alan Watts rabbit hole. And it opened up this whole newfound interest in like Eastern philosophy. And I would argue that that had like a really profound impact on me at the time. I was in my early 20s. And I think it directly impacted my worldview in many ways and my decision-making in many ways after that. So this was no human being was involved. It was just me and the internet, right? So the influence of media has always been there. You know, people would read books for a long time, you know, or they'd read the newspaper and something would shift in their mind. So that's always been there. But the accessibility and quantity of insight and ideas and perspectives has just exploded in recent years. So let's do a cost-benefit analysis on this. By the way, have any of you guys had these kinds of experiences? Is it just me? Am I weird? No? You can relate? It's just me. All right. Yeah, I figured. I always wondered. I always suspected. Cost-benefit analysis. So what are the benefits of this situation that we're in? One is amazing insights are abundant and easily accessible. So something that was so precious and valuable, hard to get. When you were just in the village, you just had the insight available of the few hundred people around you. Now you can access insights, perspectives from billions of people. And this can fuel a lot of personal growth if you are disciplined in actually acting on those insights. And freedom from feelings of aloneness. Like you can go on Reddit today and find commiseration by thousands of people for any life problem that you deal with, right? It's like you never feel really alone in the problems you're struggling with because there's always a whole community online that's dealing with the same things, and you can kind of, makes you feel like it's manageable. But are there certain costs? Have we lost certain noble qualities as a society? So for example, a lot of people who would have been like Huiken or Leonidas back in the day, who would have had that adventurousness to go seek out answers, maybe they're satisfied scrolling on their phones. Maybe the sum total of adventurousness in society has gone down because we don't need to go venture off so much to find answers to our yearning questions. Is there less togetherness because we're not engaging in that process of being vulnerable, asking people for counsel? That sincere seeking of counsel is happening less and less. Why should I show my vulnerabilities to another person? I don't have to. So I can keep putting on a performance for everybody and just be vulnerable myself in front of my computer screen. Like people might opt for that option more often. And is there a loss of agency? Like the ability to just figure things out on my own. Now that I can just turn to my device anytime I need an answer, is it training us to just not sit down, think of our own problems, to rely on our own resources to figure it out? Are we losing those things is a suggestion. And there's also this thing called the insight porn trap, right? Which is like gaining new insights is kind of pleasurable. There's like a dopamine hit, right? It feels productive, even if you don't act on it. And so you keep absorbing a lot of insights. It actually kind of scatters your focus. And then to deal with the scattered focus, you keep absorbing more insights. And you're in this loop, and action isn't happening. So you're actually kind of stagnating in reality. But it feels like you're processing a lot of ideas. And maybe there's a lot of wasted energy in that. It's not the same thing as growth through disciplined application of ideas. Does all this make sense? Seem reasonable? Cost benefit? Okay. So LLM chatbots are a serious evolution of this process. The former paradigm, which what we were talking about of search plus social media for insight, had some problems. One is it still required effort to go seek out. You had to actually search for the thing you want, read the Medium post, think about it, read another Reddit post, and try to figure out, okay, how does this apply to me? There's still some effort involved in that process, right? There's a lot of randomness of exposure. You're just scrolling and suddenly you get hit with some insight, and suddenly you look at a relationship in a different way or your job in a different way, right? It's kind of random exposure can happen. And it's a lack of specific fit to your problem. So you'll find a lot of things that are like, oh, 80% of the way there, but there's some nuances in my life that this doesn't capture. And you don't know exactly how to get that 20%. Well, LLM solve this. You can literally give it your exact nuanced specific situation. And the chatbot will just go trawl the whole internet, which you can never do on your own, and synthesize the best or whatever it's programmed to ideas from the whole internet, synthesize it for you, and you can have a conversation with it. So we have a bunch of different activities that we've planned for today. There's going to be one session where you guys are going to try to give advice to imaginary people who are stuck in certain situations. We'll do a little debate kind of thing, and we'll do a group discussion.